Hey guys, it's Stephen here back with another video, and it's the first in a long time with Mr. Ahsan Naeem. Ahsan, my friend, my good pal. How you doing, mate? Happy New Year as well, by the way, on the channel.
Happy New Year. Is it not too late to
I
say
don't
Happy
know
New
that.
Year?
I was chatting to
Isn't that
someone the
what
other
people
day.
say?
I was chatting to Native Noor actually the other day, and that's a bit of a name drop, but genuinely true because on the City show of him. And I said, "How long is it until you can say Happy New Year?" And he went, "It's his first time you see them." And I was like, "Yeah, but that's awkward if it's like March or whatever, you know what I mean?"
Yeah,
But
definitely. I'm not.
I don't know. Happy New Year anyway.
Larry David said 3rd of January, I believe, that
3rd of
after the
January
3rd of
feels
January you
early.
can't.
I think that's too
Yeah,
early.
which feels pretty. It feels very on brand for Larry
Of
David.
course it does, and I can
And
imagine he ummed and ahed his way through it and all that kind of stuff. And then like, yeah, it's the fourth. I mean, technically. Anyway, my friend, there's been a lot going on in the world of Manchester City Football Club, hasn't there? And today I would like to obviously go through that. Now, Asen, of course, has been chatting about all this and more over on the 9320 podcast. There is a link in the description. It's a wonderful podcast with loads of forthright and interesting and insightful takes over there. So go and check it out right now. The link's in the description below. Honestly, there's a lot of great City content, but it's my personal favourite to dive into. Any big topics happen, you got loads of really.
oh,
No, it is
that's
honestly.
very
Yeah,
kind.
it is, but guys, go and check it out. It's wonderful, and obviously Asan's over there, and it's his baby over at 9320. But today we're over here talking about Manchester City. Asan, that derby. I think today is the first day I woke up not intensely thinking about the derby. I think honestly, I let things go very
Mm,
quickly, but that got to me. That I think there was so much going on, and it pissed me off so much. There's a bit of an aftermath to it, really. It left a sour taste in my mouth. How are you feeling now? It's 3 days later now. How are you feeling post derby?
okay, I think. Uh, I don't think we were that bad in the second half. We probably, over the 90 minutes, I think deserved to win the game or at least get a point from it. So, and obviously that decision, I mean, there's nothing really to say about that decision. It's not really something that I feel is particularly debatable. Kind of is what it is. The officials made a huge mistake and gifted United a goal that brought them back into a game that they weren't really in. I don't think at that point, even if City, after they scored the goal, um, went back into their own shell. So, like, I did honestly, like, after the game, loads of people were like you. They were like, that hurt more than it should have hurt. And maybe it's because of the decision.
It was that entirely,
Maybe
by
it's
the way.
because,
For me personally, entirely a
yeah,
decision.
I, I just kind of felt like because of the decision, I could walk away from that game quite easily. Like, we were robbed,
Yeah.
and, once or twice a season, you'll have a decision that is poor and it changes the tide of a game and changes the result. And we had that. So yeah, I'm a little bit all right with that.
So what about the performance? Because I got a lot of criticism for trying to defend it, like you. I guess you have as well. There, I actually thought City was showing signs of being themselves in the second half. Not perfect, nowhere near it. I'm not saying City were back to the 17, 18, 19 best or whatever. But I do actually think City. The game, I would argue the game sort of went to plan for Guardiola up until that moment in terms of, I think he probably knew the players weren't going to come out and be back to their very best because the confidence is clearly shot for whatever reason, which we'll get into in a bit. They are not playing great football right now. And I don't think anyone expected them to be perfect in the first half. I didn't. I've seen too much of Man City to know that.
Mm.
But I think they were looking for something to build on. And I think once they got in at half time and they'd sort of kept United relatively at arm's length, and I think they'd realised, United, do you know what United are going to do here? They're going to sit back and just try and counter us. We can deal with that. And actually, with a few tweaks here and the odd crisp pass, maybe we got a chance. And I feel like that's what they realised at half time. And the second half, I think City came out with a little bit more purpose. And I think City were playing well. Not great, but genuinely pretty well. And I think we got the goal that at that moment, the momentum and was deserved. I feel like
We
the
were the
momentum.
only team that was going to. We were the only team that was going to score a goal in that opening period of the second half. Look, so actually, I think that if you take a little bit of a step back, I don't think that City are playing so badly, right, that we're in crisis or anything like that. I don't think that the players' confidence is shot. And
Okay.
the reason I say that is because if you look at second half against United, if you look at second half against Chelsea in the league, if you look at the entirety of the cup performance against Chelsea, that we're doing enough inside of games we're showing enough personality in moments in games for me to know that it's not gone. Like Liverpool look like a side whose confidence is shot and
Yeah.
the arse has fallen out of them, and City are a long way from that. So I think that's the kind of the positive context to give it, is that we're still seeing in games moments, and particularly, and this is a point that I made on our pod yesterday, I think. The question that I've got is, why are we playing so much better in second halves than first halves? What is it that's being said in the team talk before the game, and how is that different at half time? Or is it just that when we turn up, we deliberately play really slow for 45 minutes because we want the game to only be a competition for 45 minutes? Because it might be tactical. They might be being told to go out there and be really slow for 45 and then to quicken it up in the second 45.
It's something I've noticed in
I don't
general,
know.
by the way. I do think City are having, unless we're absolutely flying. I do think City have always been a relatively slow first half side, and because I've done so many videos, and maybe I'm just misremembering, but I feel like I've sat there and said so many times and watch alongs, and people watching this video now will probably remember me saying at some point, going, "Look, we'll fix it in the second half. We always do. We feel it out in the first half, and then we get better in the second half." And I wonder if it's just a byproduct of how we play, where we try and control the game and so on. And the inherent nature of the first half is so much more chaotic, and because the teams haven't really squared up to each other yet. And of course, you've got you've got the other team with more energy in that first half. So I think Pep's such a chess master in general. He's a proper I feel like he if the team's in the better in second half, when he's had time to talk about the flow of the game and see you need to do this and that. And maybe that's an inherent flaw of how City's play. I don't know, but it does often feel that the second half's often better for Man City, and I wonder if those tweaks are necessary to how we play. I do think, though, in general, when City are more confident, you don't need it, and we fly out the blocks, and the football's a little bit sharper. But I think that's where confidence comes in. And I agree, by the way, the confidence isn't fully shot, because Liverpool is a team with fully confident shot. I wouldn't say we're at our best.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say we're at our best, and I think that's a fair
No,
comment.
we're not. Obviously, we're not.
And I do think, in general, football, people think... Everyone always goes, you see it all the time. A great example of confidence is when they go, "Oh, he's lost his pace," and then 2 weeks later they look back, they look fast again. Football, confident players look a little bit slower and more hesitant. Unconfident players look more hesitant and slower, and the football's a little bit less sharp. So I think when you're really confident, everything's done quicker, so you can't keep up anyway, the opposition. But I think when you're still, you're in decent form but not the best, you're not really going to blow teams away initially until you feel your way into a game, and that's not ideal. But I do think it's just sort of City's way. Am I wrong there? I don't know. That's just my reading on it. What do you think?
I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I don't think City's strength historically under Guardiola was to start games really slowly and then blow teams away in the second half. On the contrary, I think our problem has always been, if the opposition get to an hour and it's only 1-0 to City, the opposition basically feel a level of confidence because they go, we're still in this game. There's half hour left. And if City give us one chance and we take it, we've robbed a point off them. And so I think our strength has always been in killing teams, in killing confidence, in getting to 35, 40 minutes into a game. It's 2-0 and you've not touched the ball. So your halftime team talk becomes, don't concede 6.
Yeah.
And I think that the opposite is also true. If it's 0-0 at halftime, for the opposition, that's a fantastic result. Whoever the opposition is, to be 0-0, home or away against City at half-time, is just a fantastic result to be in.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic position for the opposition to be in. And my problem right now is I think we're playing for that 0-0 as well. And I don't really understand
what makes you say that?
What the second half performances. We are playing far more aggressively in the second half of games than we are in the first half, which tells me that in the first half, there's a handbrake on. And it also tells me, or at least my kind of, back of a matchbox analysis of this is very much that Guardiola's happy with softly for the sake of control. But we need to score whilst having that control, because in my very humble opinion, if you have to change anything at half time, you made a mistake in the first place. Like you should be in the main, how you start the game, for me, is more important than how you finish the game, because I think that City are that type of team. We're a lot of what I'm reading and what I'm hearing this season from the kind of journalists around City and the commentators online. It's like everybody's talking about control. And I'm going, this is not Jose Mourinho's Chelsea team. This is Pep Guardiola's Man City team. So we're not built to do that. And we shouldn't be. I fundamentally disagree, including Guardiola. I disagree with any man who sits in front of me and goes, with this collection of players, the best way for me to play is with the handbrake on and with control.
Okay. So if that is the case, what in your opinion would be the reason to do that? Like, why would we essentially not write off as such, but why would we, hold ourselves back in the first half? What do you think? Because I don't like. Why would he do that? Logically, because is he not inviting trouble?
So, yeah, I mean, if you take at face value everything that's been written, then the answer is that Guardiola felt adding Haaland meant he lost a body in midfield, because playing with a false nine meant that in the build-up he had an extra body in midfield, and so ergo he needs to do something to mitigate the fact that he's lost a body in midfield. That's the basic answer for why we are playing more conservatively. My problem, again, and the numbers bear this out, is it's not working.
Yeah.
If you're conceding more goals and you're scoring less goals, the system ain't working, because the players aren't shit. You can't turn around and go, "Oh, the players aren't good enough." I mean, I can personally have a moan about Mahrez or Grealish or anybody.
Yeah.
But the point is that that's just like a moan in a moment. The reality of it is, when you play Everton or you play Southampton or you play pretty much any team in this league, home or away, you got better players.
And that's what I always agree with that.
Position
they would all start for the other team. That's the point. That's the point.
Exactly. You got better players. So if you've got better players, they've got to change for you. If you've decided, because you've added this guy over here, that you now need to change, you need to pay more respect to every team that you play. I think, and again, who knows? Maybe I'm completely wrong on all of this shit. But for me, I'm watching the players and I'm going, I don't think they like this. I think whatever Guardiola is asking them to do, they don't like it, because we're not talking about one or two players being out of form. We are talking about an entire squad, with the exception of Rodri, playing well below.
It's mad how it's just Rodri, isn't it? It's just Rodri.
Crazy.
It's crazy. Like the most, I guess he's probably the most detached, one of the brightest players in the squad anyway. And I do, maybe the football just sort of suits his game. Maybe there's an element of like he's at least affected by it. One theory I would add is potentially fitness. Maybe the first half is a control thing because of the weird season, and Guardiola's gone, we will be aware of, the exhaustion of the World Cup. Maybe we could be like, take it easy in the first half and blow away in the second, maybe.
So I think we've made too much of the World Cup as well. The World Cup, effectively, for most players, was a 2.5 week
Pep's
international break.
We know that because he's mentioned it, saying how he doesn't feel like he can handle it. He said something like that, didn't he, publicly?
But it's, I mean, so Pep's kind of public insecurity is not really connected to the reality of the situation. The reality is the players went away for between 2 and 3 weeks to a really hot country. They did training that was meant to keep them match fit. And a lot of them played minutes, a lot of them didn't play minutes, but the minutes that they played were not massively different than if they'd gone on a regular 2-week international break that you would have at that time of year. So I feel as though we're beginning to give a pass to a lot of things because of the World Cup, which, other than the fact that it was a World Cup as opposed to just an international break, it's not really that different for me. And also, respectfully, the World Cup is no excuse for lads not being able to pass it 10 yards to their mate. The World Cup's not an excuse for Guardiola deciding to play Cancelo as a right winger at Anfield, or what happened first half at Stamford Bridge in the league in terms of a tactical setup that is just messy as hell. Like these are not World Cup connected things. These are tinkering things for me, and they're all my worry, and it's a small worry right now. It's not a big worry, but my small worry is that everything that we're seeing is geared towards City being safer, ergo more negative. And no man will ever convince me that that's the best way for
No, it
this
isn't.
team to win games, is to be a bit safer. You just
There's too much
don't
talent
work.
to be that way. Like when you have the collection of, I understand if Atletico Madrid or what. Even no, I don't even understand it with Atletico. To be honest, they've got too many talented players too. But like in general, like when you've
Absolutely.
got footballers of the quality of Phil Foden, Erling fucking Haaland, Kevin De Bruyne and all that kind of stuff, it's been one of my bugbears. I love Pep, but one of his biggest criticisms, I think he pays too much respect to the opponent sometimes. And ultimately, like I think in some games he changes for opponents when I always think if you're the best team, make everyone change to you, man. Everyone should always change for you.
Absolutely.
Because you
He
just
plays the.
demand they do it. They demand they do it because you're too fucking good, And I think in general it should be like
Absolutely.
City are like that's one thing going back to the derby, by the way. And United fans probably don't want to hear this, and they'll probably just dismiss me as being bitter. Maybe I am being bitter, but if I was a United fan and this is the great comeback and the great return, I'm sorry, but as soon as City looked anything like their level, and even that was a City side playing still in second gear. I'm sorry, in that second half, United were even close to City's level, which is the point I'm making. Is that when City play their best, no one can fucking lay a hand on Man City in this league, right? They just can't in terms of the quality, and that's why I feel like in general, maybe Liverpool can do when they're at the very best. I agree, but ultimately over the course of the season, we've shown and proven that City are the best side in this country, as often by some way. So fucking play like
Absolutely.
that. Play like that. I know that sounds really obvious, and look, and there'll be something that Pep's seen that we haven't, and that's the frustrating thing. Like sometimes it could be that he's just fucking it up. It could be, but it could be that. It could be that something's going on that we don't know.
I don't think he's. I don't think he's. I don't think he's seen something. I don't think that there's been like a. I don't think it's any more intellectually deep than they've given him the best number 9 in the world. He spent 2 years playing with a false 9, and he's decided, because he's obsessed with midfielders, that by having a real number 9, now everybody else needs to play with the handbrake because control is the most important thing. And I just think that he's completely lost sight of what it is, even in the false 9 years, what made this City team so difficult to play against. I'll give you an example that I used on our review yesterday.
Yeah.
I watched Brighton play Liverpool, and I watched Arsenal play Spurs this weekend, and something jumped out at me, and it's probably maybe the most kind of damning thing that I would say about this City team and the way they play right now. Every opportunity that Arsenal got, every opportunity that Brighton got, they flooded the opposition penalty area. Yeah. They 5-6 men in the penalty area, super aggressive in the final third in terms of breaking lines. Yeah. City don't do that right now. We just don't. We are not. Last season, season before, one of our biggest strengths was once we got to that final third, we were absolutely just flooding the box and murdering teams, which is why goals came from everywhere. One of the reasons that we had so many different goal scorers is because you got lads that are basically attacking the box from all different angles and all different positions. We're not doing that. Just not doing that. It's almost as if Guardiola's gone, well, we've got Haaland there, so nobody else can go in the penalty area. So you've got loads of lads now stood disconnected from Haaland going, well, there's no triangles. There's no,
But then we know Pep's too intelligent to say no one go near the area. That's the thing. So like, surely he's not like it's just. I wonder if there's an element.
I think,
go on.
You know what I think? He's happier with the performances than we are. That's what I think. Genuinely, I think that in the main, he's all right with being this negative because he feels once I get this right, I'll win loads of games, 1-0, 2-0. Yeah, I'll sneak them over the line with Haaland. I don't need to expose my defensive frailties at all. I can keep total control of the game, and with Erling Haaland, I can go and nick a goal. And that kind of creeping conservatism that's come into Pep's thinking is counterintuitive, I think, to his beliefs as a manager. I think, he's always talked about, as well as winning, He's always talked about football being entertainment. He's always talked about how the team play for the people and the team have to excite the people and all of that sort of business. And so for me, I'm going, well, Pep, I think there's a lot of people right now watching City in the main going, it's not very entertaining. It's not very, there's not a lot for us to get overly excited about. I think we've gone from anybody can create a goal to only Kevin De Bruyne can create a goal, which has basically meant that opposition teams have gone, man mark Kevin De Bruyne, and you don't even need to worry about Erling Haaland because you won't get the ball, which effectively is what's happening, right? That's what United did. Man mark De Bruyne, you cut off 80-90% of City's creativity. Why is that? We've got nobody running in behind their fullbacks. And if we do, nobody's playing them the ball. Yeah. Everything we do in front of the opposition. We actually, even when we have opportunities to transition quickly, we do the exact opposite. Whoever gets the ball, and that includes KDB and Bernardo and Gundo and everybody, they turn around, they go back to a centre half, they ask the opposition team to get back into their positions, and then City go and play. That's too far the other way for me.
There's lots to bounce off of that. I think you're possibly right about Pep being happy with performances. I don't think he's delighted with the performances, but I think he's relatively content because I think ultimately, up until maybe the last week or two, we were in touching distance, and the points total was actually pretty good. I know Arsenal being ahead made it look pretty bad, but up until a couple of weeks ago, I don't think City's had a pretty decent start to the season in terms of mathematically. I think we did, and that's a fact. It doesn't feel that way because the football wasn't great, but I feel like you're right that Pep would have been like, all right, this is okay, and I don't feel like this is the final iteration of whatever it is he's trying, because there's been enough comments, in my opinion, in the press from Pep to indicate that he's not fully happy with what he's seeing. Like he said the other day about this Southampton game as well. Like if we play that against United, we'll get battered. It wasn't quite that word, but it was quite strong for him, which is rare. He's also talked a lot about this unhappy, this body language and all this kind of stuff, and he keeps banging that drum a lot. Like he keeps talking an awful lot about happy faces and he's playing who's happy and blah 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 blah, and implying that some people aren't happy. Which could be many reasons, It could be exasperation, general wariness, because it's just hard to do it time and time again. It could be, as you said, the football isn't great, so players are out of confidence, and they're not playing well. It could be that some people just genuinely aren't happy personally at the moment. I don't know, but I do think there is an element of this isn't the full potential of what he's trying for whatever reason. Having said that,
what I would one thing on the body language thing. Nobody looks happy right now.
No one does. You're right. Yeah.
What's he going to do? Like, it's one thing to go, well, I've got all these lads over here.
Other than Rico Lewis, maybe. That's like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, like these two lads over here are unhappy. So, but when everybody looks unhappy, then what are you going to do? You're going to bench them all. Who are you going to play?
Exactly. It does feel that way. And ultimately, when you watch City's football right now, apart from like 10 minutes in the second half where City looked like, oh my God, we are ourselves again. They looked happier on the pitch. They just did. I'm sorry. I think that's probably what hurt so much about the goal is like they looked taller. Bernardo was buzzing around a little bit more, and they looked honestly like a little bit relieved that they'd actually gone to a game away. And apart from that, City's football has been relatively, not joyless as such, but functional, and they look on the pitch because they're like, well, that's it. Yeah, look like they go on the pitch to do a job as opposed to enjoying the football. And I know that's not. Sometimes that's just the nature of the game because you can't always go out there and play like a preseason friendly and everything can be vibes and fun. But it's a little bit too much one way, I would say. And this could be fucking, once again, back of a matchbox analysis and we're talking nonsense. Because the reality might be that if we look back, City might have been a little bit more serious when we were winning and we haven't even noticed because we're too happy to compare. But when you combine that with performances and you combine that with what Guardiola's saying about body language and players' forms individually, well, it doesn't create the best picture. Now, obviously, by the way, people will be watching this thinking that we're on the verge of saying Pep out. I personally nowhere near that. I do think we're allowed to have problems because people will say that. By the way, someone's already said in the comments. It sounds like Ahsan's that he's exasperated with Pep. It's always worth having the caveat.
Hold on. So maybe we should characterize this like this, yeah? In any serious long-term relationship in your life, you'll have moments where things are a bit tricky, right? You'll have moments where you will butt heads and you will disagree, Fundamentally, there's not a better manager on the planet than Pep Guardiola.
Exactly.
In the same way, there's not a better wife on the planet than my wife.
And by the way, I've argued with Nicola more over the past 3 months than having 9 years because we're exhausted and tired because we've got a baby. And so like things happen, don't they?
Yeah,
but I love it a bit. So.
I can't get on board with the idea that you can't be critical of Pep.
It's nonsense.
I think that I'm somebody who is at times overly defensive of Pep, and have been accused a lot of being a happy clapper, right, and being a Guardiola apologist.
It's funny,
so for me, I'm neither of those things. I'm neither a knee-jerk
I get
criticizer of Pep nor.
Oh, you think you know best, or you're a happy clapper, and like which was it? You know what I mean? Like constantly, like you know more than Pep, do you? Or you're a happy clapper? No, somewhere in the middle, just in the middle. You know, the normal person.
Look, so I think that one of the things that I like, I genuinely believe in the eye test, right? I think that in football, what you feel generally, if you go and like dig deep into it, you'll find that you're probably right. So, for example, I saw the thread that the American Citizen did about our expected goals for, expected goals against this season, right? And as soon as I looked at his thread, 2 things jumped out at me. First thing was, I was like, well, if we're conceding more goals and you're telling me that Guardiola's being conservative because we're conceding more goals, then what came first? Because for me, the conservatism came first, and it's because of that we're conceding more goals. So to put that theory in a test, or because of what my eyes I felt were telling me, I went and looked at the underlying numbers, and then I tweeted them. Our XG against and our XG for before Liverpool is markedly better than after Liverpool. And if you look at the manner of the performances before Liverpool and after Liverpool, they're markedly different.
What about the 1-0 loss here, right? That one, because obviously we played Liverpool a couple of times. You're on about the 1-0 loss.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about the that was game 10.
Yeah.
So there was 9 league games before it, and there's been 9 after it. So it's a pretty good way to measure where we are. And I'm looking purely at league games. It's a pretty good way to measure where we are in terms of the kind of the ebb and flow of the season. And even though, because that's what I felt as though Liverpool was a moment where something changed. We turned up at Anfield, we played like pussycats, right? And we got our tummy tickled by a shit Liverpool team.
Which is proven now, by the way, which is proven. They were bad form as well at the time, weren't they, as well? So
it was clear then. I mean, what you say about, I think that Guardiola sometimes plays the reputation of a team rather than than the actual team itself. The number of times
we know he does, by the way. He talks how often he's United and he's great. The great Man United, he does it all the time. And let's be honest, Pep, they haven't been the great Man United for a long time, but he still treats them that way.
No, totally. And I understand the kind of historical respect that he wants to pay teams, but purely from a footballing perspective, going into the Anfield game, anybody that had watched Liverpool up to that point would have said they're defensively so vulnerable. The most important thing is to put their defense under pressure.
Yeah.
So what do we do for 45 minutes? We play in front of them. We go, nobody's running past a Liverpool player. Everybody play in front of their whoever they're up in a duel against, you play in front of them. And that's what we did for 45 minutes. And it just, by the end of that half, I think the entire team on the pitch were going, what are we doing here?
And that was where we played Cancelo right wing back, wasn't it? And Foden was almost like a left wing back as well. And so before that, the context is that we just beat Southampton 4-0, Copenhagen 5-0, United 6-3. We drew 0-0 against Copenhagen, but that was a dead rubber, so that's fine. 3-0. So here's the results before that. 4-0 Sevilla away, 2-1 Dortmund at home, 3-0 Wolves away, 6-3 United at home, 5-0 Copenhagen at home, 4-0 Southampton at home, then the 0-0, which was once again a relative dead rubber, and then Liverpool 1-0, where we were poor as fuck. So like the formation changed, the lineup changed, and it's since then. I mean, looking at that since then, that's sort of where the performances dropped off a little bit. Really, to be honest, I think you're right. And we had. I
think we missed something as well. I think we missed something as well. I think that we miss an alternative from the bench when it ain't happening. So let's say, just for argument's sake,
Oh, yeah, I
right?
agree.
Let's say that you go for control, right? And you go for like the Grealish, Foden, Grealish, Mahrez, like run back towards your own fullback, like keep the ball, move it left to right, very, very patient, blah, 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 blah. Fine. Then Damari Gray does Damari Gray things and he bangs one top bins, yeah, that you can't do anything about.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. You can criticize the defenders, but fuck it. In the end, your guy has scored a worldie that 99 times out of 100 is ending up in the stands.
Yeah.
What's your answer to that? You ain't got an answer on the bench because, and I'm not talking specifically about these players, but the characteristics they had in Sterling and Jesus. You've lost two players whose characteristics you haven't really replaced. So you don't have any, if you need to change it up, you've not got anything from the bench that really changes it up. Now, that might be a kind of medium-term squad planning thing where they decided, right, we're going to let these lads go. We're going to bring Haaland and we're going to bring Alvarez in next summer. We'll give Cole Palmer a year. And if it doesn't work in a year, we'll go and buy another winger. Maybe that's what they're looking at. But all of these kind of decisions, and they go all the way back to the transfer window last summer, they have an effect and they can be analysed. And I'm very much of the opinion that right now, we've got a lad in Haaland who would absolutely love to play with a lad like Sterling,
Absolutely.
who's just a winger, who's going to,
create space,
run past his man and bang it into the box, and create space. And I don't know. This has been the most counterintuitive season in terms of decisions that are being made and trying to figure out what the purpose is. Like we've not had a stable defense, so therefore we're playing more defensively and relying on the defense more. Doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
If you're built to score loads of goals, right, and you've got defensive issues because Walker's injured, Diaz is injured, you're having to mix and match every week because you didn't want to buy another fullback in the summer. Well, then, if you're doing that, then make sure that you score more goals than the opposition.
It's come back to like what if you look at it that way, what's City's biggest weakness or what is City's biggest strength? I think it's pretty obvious. The biggest strength is that we have a genuinely freakish striker who scores at an insane rate. If you give him even just, he's guaranteed a goal a game if you give him a couple of chances. Guaranteed. It's the closest you can get to a guarantee in football with goals is Erling Haaland if you give him a couple of chances in a game, which is he's got a 33% conversion ratio, which is just stupid in football. I mean, they're never that high, but at the same time, we're not playing to that. As you said, it's like we've gone, what's our biggest weakness? And which one that we've created, by the way, ourselves, with the constant rotation, the constant sort of, it's like a problem we've made.
Well, we just didn't have a right.
Go on.
We didn't have a right back, did we? Or we didn't until they finally gave Rico Lewis a go and it worked. But before that, how many games did Stones and Akanji play at right back?
Yeah.
And that was in a moment when those lads were playing at centre back and doing well. So it was suddenly you've got to remove your centre backs from centre back and move them to right back because you've lost your right back. And it just there's a kind of there's a part of me that just I just go like there's just a lot of stuff that I feel you can pick holes in right now and go, and I'm sure that if Pep was sat here, he'd go, you're a fucking idiot. You don't know what you're talking about. This is why I did what I did. But right now, in my own simplistic way, I don't understand too many of the decisions that he's making. And I guess the thing is, the funny thing is that for all of this moaning, like I'm firmly of the opinion that City can and probably will win the league this season. Why? Because 8 points with half a season to play, and you've got to play the team who are 8 points ahead of you twice. Who am I in a one-off game? Who am I backing? Man City or the 19 other teams in the Premier League? I'm backing Man City every time.
15th
Not just
of
because I'm a
Feb.
supporter.
That's the date for me. Like, that's it. I've said it, and
Yeah.
I don't mean people think when I say I've made my peace with the season, they feel like I've just given up and written this. No, what I mean by that when I say I've made my peace with it is that I think there are some probably fundamental problems with the squad, and I do think the potential to fix them is clearly there, but at the same time, it might just be a step too far. So I'm fine with what happens this season because I feel like I've been spoiled in the league. Having said that, that doesn't mean I've written off the idea of it. I'm not going to complain and go fucking mental unless we absolutely ridiculously collapse, you know. But largely, when I'm saying that, I mean, whatever happens. I can see why it wouldn't work. I can see why it would work, and I think that's where I stand basically right now. And I think that's a relatively reasonable point to think. To me, yeah, that game, Arsenal, 15th of February. I guess the FA Cup's going to be interesting before that, but I don't think that's going to be representative of City versus Arsenal. Really, I think it might be, but we'll see what teams they play. But that league game, I mean, where we are after that league game, Arsenal away at the Emirates. That's to me. That's where my head goes. If we don't get anything there, then it's going to be hard.
I just don't. I guess what I think that what I think about Arsenal is that as impressive as they are, mentally, it's a lot. Like, 95 points they're on course for like 90. I think they're on course for 100 points. Like,
yeah,
that's a lot. Like, that's not. There's a mental toll.
It's all right. They haven't got a striker to score that 100-point goal. Oh, never mind. It's all right. They haven't got a fullback that would get them out. If they were 2-0 down, it would change the course of the game. Oh, never mind.
Yeah. No, so that's reminded me. So this control thing, right? I think a little bit. You can almost go back to last season and you look at Villa, and some of the games like Villa, right, where you got a period into a game of football, and your big worry is City aren't creating enough.
Yeah.
And so I think that the creativity thing can almost go a little bit back to last season as well. And I don't know, like it's a weird place to find yourself in, where you support a Guardiola team and you go, we're not creative enough. That's just weird. It's massively contradictory.
Well, it's
for
true.
me.
It is true, to be fair. Like,
right now, that's what it feels like.
Yeah, it doesn't mean they can't be, but it is. Super chat, by the way, just want to get to this from I do 17x. Sorry, mate, we're just waffling, so I've missed it. He said, I just want one of you guys to explain to me why we don't play any single long ball to Haaland up top so he can run in behind. It's pathetic. Is that, what do you reckon? I mean, do you think we play enough balls in behind, or should we play more? Should we play less? Where's your head at it?
So I think what happened is, if you go back and you watch the first 4, 5, 6 league games of the season, I think we do it too much.
We do it a lot.
So I think what happens,
too far the other way.
What happens is, so this is what I mean, that like the season, this is why I'm not massively worried, because I don't think that there's like some huge it's not like Guardiola needs a pre-season to figure this out. No, this is, for me, I feel there's been an overcorrection. I think at the start of the season, the lads were just like, we got a new plaything, and every chance they got, they just goofed the ball to him, and he did mad things. And Guardiola, for various reasons, went, I don't like that. You're not doing that anymore. And I even said on our podcast, it would not surprise me if there was a real, a moment where he's walked into the dressing room and gone, if you play that ball again, you won't play again. Do you know what I mean? Like, I remember Walker played a ball to Haaland. I feel
it's funny though, because we're doing the same thing now anyway, but with KDB instead. It's instead of like play it quick early, but the difference is now give it to KDB to cross too soon. It feels like it's just.
Yeah, but it's
the same problem, but in a different way. You know what I mean?
It's totally. And basically, what you're doing is you're letting the opposition set themselves up defensively, and then you're banging the ball. So why not just bang
too
the
quick?
Ball
then now it's too slow. Like
and being afraid of being afraid of transitions. If you're City, you have to be afraid of transitions because of the way that you play.
Yeah.
Right. But if
you've
got Erling Haaland. But hold on. So I've got a correction for you, right? So let's say that you're a bit afraid of transitions. You're a bit, you feel a little bit like we play with this really high line, and so therefore I can't risk players losing the ball. I've got to play in certain moments with Grealish and Mahrez almost playing like wide playmakers, where they're there to control the ball, control possession, and look for the perfect slidden ball through to Haaland. Why not play? Why not have some games or some moments in games where the team just drops 15 yards? Just just go back 15 yards rather than going like rather than being conservative once you've got the ball. Step off the opposition. Eventually, their centre backs will go, "Oh, I've got some space. I'm going to wander into it." Start your press a little bit deeper so that when you pick the ball up, one, you've got space to hit. Two, you're not so far forward that you're massively susceptible to turning the ball over. And three, in Haaland, you've got a guy you can hit. You've actually got a guy who can exploit the channels, run into them, and cause chaos. This is what I mean. That like you can't mathematically control every aspect of a game of football. And right now, I feel like Pep's feeling is I have to control every single pass because I've got Erling Haaland up there. And I'm going, no, it's the opposite. Now that you've got Erling Haaland, you've got to like basically take some of these lads off the leashes that they're on and go on, lads.
So what's frustrating about it as well, that conclusion, which I think actually happened, I think it's true, is that I remember games last season when our false nine just didn't get a touch. Like I remember the narrative of where Phil Foden's barely getting a touch. Like everyone's forgotten that.
This on a pod recently.
Literally, Phil Foden. Yeah, it's true, isn't it? Though everyone will be like, we played with false nines, so Phil Foden was dropping deep and getting 50 touches. He wasn't. There was times where him or Grealish or wherever, or even Jesus through the middle, were barely getting a fucking touch. And like
false nines are isolated.
They are, and well, nines are isolated. In general, strikers are isolated until that is the very definition of a striker. They are fucking. They are a special. What's it called in American football? Where it's special something like. They're for moments, aren't they? Those players. They're not usually involved as much as everyone think they are. They're like a special team.
But also,
and that's fine. But that is fine.
But also, and this is the thing that again, it's massively counterintuitive for me. It's that so. When I agree with you, I said it on a few podcasts in the last couple of weeks that I think that we've got a revisionist idea of what control was. Because back when we were playing with false nines, I remember loads of games looking at the false nine with 40 minutes gone, going, he's not touched the ball.
And guess what? By the way, we said it's fine though because usually they scored. How is that any different?
Yeah.
Like Foden was getting tap-ins and going, oh, it's all right because we won 1-0 and he actually did his job for him and he worked hard. And we're like, oh, we're wasting Phil because he's not on the ball as much. I remember all those conversations, but everyone forgets him so quickly. And the point is now we've got an actual guy who's happy to do that. And as Ryan just said in the comments, the term we used was sacrificial lamb. And someone was that, someone was doing it for the team. And so what's the difference? Now we've got a guy 6'5" who's happy to be that, who's more deadly than anyone we've ever had probably as a finisher. And well, it's not a problem. It's a problem because we're acting like it's a problem, and it isn't a problem.
No,
I don't.
And I think. Go on. I think philosophically, right? I kind of look at Pep and I go, and I understand it. Like I get it. I think Pep's the kind of guy who goes like, my system will beat you, not my individual players. Like I know that he likes to give credit to his individual players, but we all know how big Guardiola's ego is, right? Pep more or less goes into every game going, I'm going to best the opposition coach. I think a little bit what sticks in his craw is the idea that he can fuck it up and Haaland will just go and dig him out because you can launch long balls to him. I think that he's very much of the opinion Haaland needs to be a cog in my machine rather than the fella who makes sure that even if my machine is broken, I still win games. And again, for me, it's just counterintuitive. If you've got a guy who's effectively going to score goals like Cristiano Ronaldo, get him the ball. If you've got a guy like Leo Messi who's going to score goals, just get him the ball.
I reckon that'd be subconscious, by the way. I don't think that'd be a conscious decision. I think
no, totally. But it's that's why I called it that's why I said philosophically, because I'm not sure that it's not necessarily something that Pep wakes up and he goes, I need to best.
He's not doing that. He's like,
no. It's more the idea that so the way that Pep would probably view it would be that tactics I can control, individual player performances I can't control. So if I allow a team to be built solely on the idea that Haaland scores all the goals, then if he has a bad dip in form or if he's injured or whatever, then the team are fucked. So therefore, I need to devise a system that works with and without Erling, which I totally get.
Yeah.
But I still keep coming back to the idea that he needs the football way more than he's getting it, and Pep said it after, thankfully, and I've been waiting for this moment.
Yeah.
After the derby, he said, we need to get the ball to Haaland more, and we need to get the ball to him faster. And those two things were music to my ears.
Yeah, exactly.
So I was like,
there's been post Southampton, him saying we were shite. That was music to my ears. And then post the United game, even though we played pretty well, actually, he still said, no, we need to be faster. That was music to my ears. He reminded me a couple of years back when he went, we haven't got any width, and all of a sudden things just changed. And like it was the West Brom game, which is the famous one. And then I don't know if he'll fix it, but I do think he's going to try something. And I do think hopefully
Pep will fix it.
Of course,
Pep will fix it. Like the big thing about this whole conversation, and maybe why I feel that I can be really hard on Pep, is because the man is a genius.
Well, he demands it. He demands it, though. That's the thing. Pep demands this. Like, the very essence of what makes Pep brilliance is intense analysis of his weaknesses and his opponents. And he'll be the first to admit, like, there's definitely an element of paralysis by analysis sometimes. You can, like, overanalyze things and you can overcook things. But he would admit that too. But the point is, he's such a fucking mega mind that eventually he will stumble across the right solution, because that is what he does. Because
absolutely. And I think
we tend to think, by the way, just because we haven't seen it yet, it was never going to happen. No, like, managers, even though it can be frustrating, they rightfully will give things time to gestate, because you have to see.
And I think, as a football manager, I think that the analogy that I would use is that as a football manager, sometimes you've got to fly the plane while you're fixing the plane, and that's just a really hard thing to do. I don't think that it's really, like, I think that when you're in the midst of game, rest, 1 day of training, game, rest, 1 day of training, game, rest, 1 day of training, trying to iron out the creases, trying to instill certain ideas.
And he would argue the World Cup, by the way.
Yeah, maybe the World Cup falls into it, but my thing is just more, the reason that I'm not worried as such is because I don't really think that this is something that, I don't think that the underlying numbers are appalling. I don't think that we're at Liverpool levels where it's just like, oh, there's a problem here. We're obviously not at our best. There's obviously a problem in the sense that maybe we haven't been as aggressive in an attacking sense, and we haven't been as solid in a defensive sense. But we're talking about 10% corrections here. If we get 10% better defensively and 10% better from an attacking point of view, we go back to winning every game.
Things change very quickly in football, very quickly. Like look at the difference of the confidence the players had, even if it's just for 10 minutes after that goal at Old Trafford. Like, football is so based on moments and based on momentum, and I do think in general, like, if a certain one player who's so influential finds his form again, the others around it probably will too, because football can become more fun. And honestly, it's that quick. So that's why, because someone said, yeah, but when is eventually, in the comments, internet user saw that. Well, the point is, we don't know, but the point is, I would go back to the fact that there are still 20 games left in the season, so it feels long because of the World Cup, and it feels like we've been at this season forever. But that is, I guess, the grind of football these days. But it's actually we're not even halfway point yet, technically, of the season.
So many games left. There's so many games left.
We're actually not. We're actually, we're in mid-January, but we're actually technically only in December still in the season. Usually, that's the thing. Like, when it feels so much more advanced than it is. But now it wouldn't. We wouldn't be saying Happy New Year to each other in a video still at this stage of the season. So that's the thing, is like, we need to remember that, like, it's not as late as it feels. It feels later than it is, and that's not an excuse as such. It's just a matter of fact, And ultimately, Pep is this is at the point usually where he starts to fix things. At this stage of this, it feels later because it is later, but Definitely. It isn't. You know what I mean? It's normally around here where he's like, Pep does give ideas time, and I think that's fair. I actually think it's fair. Even if it doesn't work, he'll give it time because he understands that things don't happen overnight. They do need a few games. They do need tweaks, but it is around now that he does actually go, nah. And the fact that we're saying as well that he's just said some dramatic things in press conferences for the first time, it's almost like he's reached that point of the season where he goes, this ain't fucking working.
For sure.
And to me, that is reassuring. Quickly, Isaac, because I know you haven't got long left, mate. What do you want to see on the pitch? What system? What players? What do you want to see? Have you got a preference?
Just want the handbrake off. Okay. That's it. So
what does that look like?
What does that look like for me? I think that looks like having at least one fullback playing aggressively wide and in the attacking final third. I think that looks like much more leeway for the entire team to look for Haaland when he makes runs. That I think that also looks like far more players making runs because again, like so in the false nine days, the false nine would come deep and one of the eights or one of the wingers would immediately run in behind.
Yeah.
That's what you're doing. That's the point. If everybody's running away from goal, the opposition defenders go, all right, cool, I'll just stand here. The way it works is that if one goes deep, the other one runs in behind them. That's how you cause the chaos.
Yeah.
So for me, it's just about more aggressive runs in behind, more aggressive passing. I think that player form is connected to the manner in which they're being asked to play. So I feel that if you take the handbrake off, players' performances will improve.
Fingers crossed, eh?
So now I've got a question for you. I've got a question for you before we go. Will City finish outside the top two?
No, I don't think they will do. By the way, for me, I want to see Guardiola just trust Kyle Walker again to stop counters. Just trust Kyle Walker's pace again. You know, like it used to be that we'd let Kyle Walker's pace, even though he's not in his best form, deal with counters. Now it's everyone's deals with counters. just let him do it. Let him do it, you know, because he can do it. Let him stay far back. Don't let him get fucking dead far in the midfield. Let him stay back. Play John Stones there. He's got good pace too. Then I know Joao can be frustrating or whatever. I don't know. Just let him do his thing. Make sure we overload on one side. We're not, as you said, it used to be that. Do you know my favourite position in football is in Manchester City? And we've been the best in the world at this for the past God knows how many years since Guardiola arrived. Do you know the exact place where Bernardo Silva crossed Sergio Aguero to score against Liverpool in the 2-1 at the Etihad? You know that point where he pulled it back, then Aguero shot the near post. There was no team in world football that's been better in that position. It's just inside the area on the left-hand channel particularly. We have been the best in the world at those positions. We still get a bit of joy on the right every now and then with De Bruyne over there, but largely City have got progressively worse at that. And that comes from overlaps and little movement channels. It used to be that we were fucking phenomenal. With David Silva there, he was like the best in those, just right down near the corner flag, right there, not the corner flag, in the area on that side. And Bernardo can do it as well. He's done it loads. We don't do that anymore. And I was watching a video recently.
We missed David Silva.
Yeah, we massively. Of course we do. He's a genius, and he's still a genius, annoyingly as well. But it used to be that Phil Foden, to me, his form hasn't been great, but he is isolated out there. It's very much now, given the ball, run past your man. He never used to have to. He used to be able to play the 1-2s and whatever, and he would do it because he'd drive inside, because he'd drive inside, because Cancelo or Bernardo would drift out wide of him a little bit. I'm not seeing that.
They all look petrified of losing the ball. They all look just petrified of losing the ball. It just, to me, I can't get away from
the famous meme about their Man United. Can we turn it around? The Manchester fucking City, you know what I mean, man? The Man City, just fucking go out there and fuck them up. I know that sounds really brutal, but I'm honest. But it is. Fuck them. We're the City.
Hey, that's a great way to end this stream.
It is.
We're Man City. Just go out there and slap them.
You're a superstar. Ahsan, of course, is on the 9320 pod. There's a link in the description. I'll put it again in the comments. I would implore you to sign up. It's wonderful. It's a fantastic pod. You see how much passion Ahsan puts into it, as do the rest of the guests over there. They're all great. Howard, Lloyd, Stefan, they're all wonderful over there. So go and do it right now, guys. And we'll catch you again, hopefully, soon for another video. But things will get better because we've got Pep Guardiola, and he is that good. And we're Manchester City. Guys, thank you very much. Ahsan, thank you very much, mate. You're a superstar.
Pleasure, mate.
Cheers, guys. Bye-bye. In a bit, like, subscribe, all the usual stuff, and I'll see you tomorrow for another